Everybody, it is Jen and Joe with the Creative Finance Playbook, and we are super excited today to just be the two of us today coming at you.
Yay! Well, we're going to talk about some really cool things, so you guys are in for a treat. Today, we're going to talk about how to do creative finance deals in today's market. And I think that's a good thing, right? Because the market is changing, and it changes all of the time.
Well, it's one thing to talk about what's currently happening versus, what one did 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even, a couple of months ago. So yeah, I think it's really important to chat about the market. And when we say market, we're really heavily working in Florida and New York and Pennsylvania, I would say, but we keep our ears to the street nationwide.
Hey, I'm looking at deals all over. Today, we looked at a deal in Texas. I looked at a deal in Oklahoma, and my gosh, this guy in Oklahoma, honey, his house, he bought it for $3,700, and it looks like it. So when
3,700.
$3,700.
When did he buy it for that?
Not too long ago, he was going to do it as a fix and flip, and then all of a sudden, it came into one of those things where he's out of town, ran out of money on another project, and he's like, "I just need to off this thing." So yeah, the market is changing, and so I'm going to just beat it right off the beginning. Okay, I see some people like the market is crashing, right? High interest rates. And they do the little thing, right? And then I see, yes, there will be, Ricky. And then I see some people saying, well, the market is not going to crash, right? And it's still doing really well. And I agree to both of those, okay? It really depends on where you are.
It's like
it really
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Absolutely, yin and yang.
Yeah.
Because we have both going on
We
right
really
now.
do, especially like I just said, we love New York and we love Florida. And they're two polar opposites. It couldn't be any crazier at this point in time, I think. But one thing rings true that I really want to bring up is people still have situations, whether it was back in 2017 when we first started doing creative deals. Some of the first people we helped out were inherited properties or accidental landlords, and those are still very prevalent today. So, if you're struggling and you're scratching your head and you're like, well, how do I do a deal? I just want to get a deal done. Stop focusing on the deal is going to be my very first piece of advice. And really think about how can you help the other person on the other side of the phone, the computer, the screen, however you're communicating with them, because there's a problem that they have that you're trying to solve.
Well, and you hit it on the head, but it also, too, it's the tools.
Yeah.
Right? You got to have the tools in your tool belt in order to help them. And if you're just doing fix and flips or just doing wholesaling or just doing creative finance and you're just doing that one thing, that's fine. But now if you could look at a deal in many different lights, maybe it is a big, discount because the property does need a lot of work. And sometimes it's a turnkey house and the seller wants, top dollar for it. Well, you can make that work, too. And that's why having both of those in your tool belt are extremely important. So what I've been seeing around the market are listings, okay? And this kind of gives you the idea of what's happening.
Which market you want to focus on?
We're going to talk about the whole country.
Okay.
And so what they're looking at is by listings are they getting more listings on market now, or are there less? And less or more compared to when, right? Because you can look back 10 years like, oh, there's more now or less now, right? Doesn't matter. What truly matters is what's been going on recently.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. We still buy a lot of deals in New York. We got some right now. We're going to be hopefully closing on 2 this week, possibly a third. So the neat thing, and we're going to get into that third one, because there is a deal to be had if you're looking for a creative finance deal with little cash down, turnkey in upstate New York.
With none of your own credit.
No banks.
Okay.
None of that. And it's a nice house on a couple of acres. It's really beautiful. And we're going to get into that deal. So maybe you're looking for one and you could get one today yourself too. But what's happening in New York, there's a shortage of inventory, especially in upstate New York. And I didn't know this, but upstate New York, shout out to you and I buying deals up there for a long time now, but that's one of the hottest areas in the entire country.
I still don't understand it.
Well,
I know you've explained it to me a couple times, but to me, it's just Rochester.
It's Rochester. There's stuff going on, right? There's Buffalo, there's Rochester, there's Albany, New York. And I think the reason why is because they're fairly good-sized cities. There's just really a lot of people who bought recently who had a 2-3% interest rate and they don't want to sell. So there's not many people putting their house on the market. So there's a shortage of inventory. We have somebody who is currently interested in one of our rent-to-own properties. She listed her house on Thursday last week, and she got 50,000 over asking. She got 250 for that house.
Mm-hmm.
So it went 50,000 over asking. Now we're in Florida. I'm seeing $50,000 price drops after price drop after price drop. I saw one. It was $750,000 price drop over the last year and some change.
Well, it's because they've raised those prices.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that too. Some of the realtors and sellers shoot for the moon, like literally with their pricing, and they're like, I'm not coming back into the stratosphere. I'm staying up in the moon. And that's why they're not selling.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But in upstate New York, I think that perfect formula is you can find a beautiful house in these cities we mentioned, in a beautiful neighborhood, in a great school district when you're out in the suburbs. And what do they cost? 200, 300,000. So when you look at an interest rate going from 3% to 7%, that does change your payment somewhat, but it's not huge.
500 to $1 million.
Yeah, when you're looking at the $1 million houses here, which are just the 2,000 square foot ranch with a pool, and that costs you $1 million where we live. That's why.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at that price house at a 3% rate, but that's why it's $1 million, because that house used to be 500,000 years ago. But that's why they want $1 million now for them, and they sold for that price when rates were 2 or 3%. Now rates are 7.5%, and they're not selling. Not only are they not selling, what happened in Florida is the perfect storm. Well, if that house used to be a $500,000 house and now it's $1 million home, the taxes have to get going accordingly because it's going to get assessed at $1 million. And then if the house is valued at $1 million and it gets assessed at $1 million, guess what the insurance company does? They've got to insure it for $1 million. Why are you smiling, Matt?
I'm realizing that we don't need these headphones.
Huh?
We're wearing headphones today, and I'm like, why? It's just the two of us. This habit. Usually we're interviewing somebody else on the other
Yeah,
end.
you're right. Go ahead, take them off then.
I was like, I can't hear you. You're a little muffled, so hello.
Well, good. Now
Habits die hard. All right, here we go.
So, but the point of it is, yeah.
Gotta love us.
Keeping it real.
If you're listening, we had headphones on. Usually we interview other people, but today it's just the two of us, and we're sitting side by side, so hello.
With headphones on, talking to each other.
Yeah, so if you're watching, you can go ahead and laugh at us. Go ahead.
So now that we've realized we can hear each other better, maybe you'll hopefully get what I'm saying here. But with these $400,000 or $500,000 price houses that are now assessed at $1 million, valued at $1 million, the insurance company insures at $1 million, taxes get taxed at $1 million value. Now you want $1 million for the house, and now interest rates have gone up. So when Florida used to be very affordable, it's not.
It's really not. And it's crazy too, because it's like you move down here thinking like there's going to be this lower price point. And I know we're near a beach, but
I mean, there are certain parts of Florida that are definitely, more affordable.
Yeah, that's true.
We have a house in a town called Williston, Florida, and it's a cute little town. I wouldn't say it is like middle of the state. And we bought that for a little over $100,000. It's a great little golf course community. And it's a nice house. So there are some of those there. But if you do want to live really close to the beaches, guys, you got to pay, which is what it is.
Yeah. So
in the insurance, they will get you down here. Now, insurance for a property in upstate New York, what were we paying? And what do we pay? Is it $1,000 a year?
It depends. It could be a little bit more. Like recently we had the one we're looking at in Grand Island, and it was almost $3,000.
Jesus. Really?
Pretty sure.
What would they?
I don't know.
Hurricane
maybe
insurance
I gotta
on that one
double
too?
check. I'm not sure, but yeah, that was a little bit high on that one.
Yeah, so usually about $1,000, maybe $1,500.
Yeah, no, because the monthly payment is like maybe $180 on most. I would say some of our single family homes, but I don't know. That was a really bigger house too.
Okay.
And the big barn. Yeah, that was being insured, right?
Sure.
The whole barn.
And it was a newer house, so I don't know, but that's still.
It's still high, but that's the going rate down here. I feel like 3,000 in Florida is like
you got a steal. Yeah, well, because we looked at this one property. It's probably about 10 miles away, which is about a 45-minute drive here in Florida, and they have a small ranch, and they pay $8,000 a year for insurance. It's not even close to the water, but it still costs that much. Well, that's what's really hurting it.
Yeah, where the hurricanes go. One of our clients in small group today was looking at something in like New Orleans, and he was saying the guy's paying $14,000 in insurance. And it's like not that big of a property.
Yeah.
So definitely have to do your due diligence and run your numbers.
So this is why it's making Florida this perfect mess of price drops.
Yeah.
So if you're looking in Florida, and this isn't all of Florida, there are some pockets that are still kind of performing kind of well. It's situational. But I will tell you, even in these areas where prices are coming down and things like that, I'll still tell you the hot areas in Florida. All of them that have a really great school district, and whatever the median house range is in that area, if you could find a really nice buttoned up, beautiful house, beautiful neighborhood under the median in a great school district, those houses will still sell fast here in Florida.
Yeah.
So that could be a $300,000 home that was renovated. Everything looks great. And, if the houses in the area sell for 400 and you're listing at yours at 350, that thing will get sold quickly. It's the ones when you're looking for that $1 million, it makes it challenging.
Yeah.
So then I see other pockets of the country where Texas, you see some pockets that are kind of slowing down, others going up. So the thing about what's going to happen in this market, and it really honestly doesn't matter, guys. And this is what I love about doing real estate the way we do it. We did a lot of deals when markets were going up and down. And the key to this is there's many people who are motivated sellers who just don't want to put their house on the market for whatever reason. And sometimes these are really about a speed thing, right? They don't want to have to get the house picture ready, market ready, and put it on there. And many times they feel almost embarrassed.
No, yeah. And I think is your an emotional attachment to your house and your things. And then to have people come through it and literally nitpick it apart in a sense, because they know if you could clean it out or make it a little bit brighter, nicer, newer, then it's going to, sell better. But sometimes people don't even have that money to pour into that. And then on top of like the emotional stress of all of the stuff.
Well, and that's one of the biggest challenges that we always see is a lot of times when we're working with a seller, their big concern is, what are we going to do with all of this stuff? Yeah. What am I going to do with all my things? So part of our selling point is that we buy it as is. Whatever you want, take with you. Whatever you don't, leave it behind and we'll take care of it. Like an old couch, a sofa, stuff, whatever. Make it easy for them. And that's really part of the key. And I could see even in Florida, the writing's on the wall because they talk about interest rates rising and rising. We have a seller. So this is a true story of a lead that I'm working on today. And I've been working on this lead for how many months now? The one right around the corner from here. She's got a beautiful house. It was built in 2006. It's like 2,000 square feet. Nice neighborhood. You're probably all of 10 minutes to the beach. Got an in-ground pool. Nice property.
Quiet neighborhood. Nice neighborhood.
Yeah. And
appears to be an HOA.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Definitely an HOA back there. Her challenge is she wants to sell the house. Husband passed away. She puts it on the market and lists it with a local realtor. And I think they started off somewhere in the sevens, low sevens. And now the property's not only not selling, they keep doing open houses and nobody's even showing up.
Yeah.
And she's in a jam where she wants to sell it. Part of the reason though, too, is because it does need a roof. Now, not because the roof is bad, but because it's an 18-year-old roof. And in Florida, that's old.
Yeah. Where
in upstate New York, that's still not that old of a roof, right? But down here, for insurance purposes, they have to have it. But now she's in a situation where it does need a roof, maybe some paint. But she's like, hey, Joe, Jenn, like, I will take a cash offer. I just need to get rid of this thing. So it's just kind of fascinating to me when people say online, the market is crashing or the market's still on fire. It's doing both. So the big story there, it's situational.
Well, I think too, and it reminds me of another one that you're working right now too, is, how we ask our questions is we always lead with terms. So terms just means that we're looking for creative finance, right? We're looking to not have to pay cash all up front right now. We just need a little bit of time, ideally years, not months, that we'll be able to cash this person out. And, we'll text back and forth is how we prefer. But, there's a point in which you have to hop on a phone call. And I know Lexi hopped on yesterday. And once she was on a phone kind of explaining the situation here, because this person also has a house listed on market, it's not selling. At first she's saying, I need $100,000 down, which is a lot of money, too much to put down. But once you kind of crack open the situation, the problem, and you can at least start having conversations, like that's what it's all about, is being able to present options to your seller and to really not be nervous about it, but really you have a gift that you are able to help these people with if you can at least get in the door, right? And offer them solutions. And the first time through, they're probably going to say no way, no how, not going to work. But as time goes on and, the mortgage payments are weighing on them, or financial stress, or just the stress of the house itself, right? Like that emotional, physical burden of like keeping up with things and having an empty house and worrying about that, it all adds up.
You give me chills just talking, girl.
Well, it's true. And I just feel like so many people think like, I'm terrible at this because I didn't get a deal today, and I called 10 people and they all told me no. But okay, what are we going to follow up? How are you following up with them? Like, what is their situation? Are you tracking them somehow? And you don't need $1,000 a month CRM or anything crazy. Like, Excel works fine. We used that back in the day. Like, I had paper.
Well, and that's the key, because so many times you think, well, if I talked to them one time and I didn't get a deal, the deal's off, right? No way. And it's not about that. Like, if you're only planning on getting a deal after you talk to somebody the first time, and you're never going to do follow-up, and all you're going to do is just lead generation, you are the definition of a hamster on the hamster wheel. And I'm running, right? And I'm putting forth all of this energy, but I'm frustrated that I'm not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, it's time to stop being that hamster, right? Get off the wheel by doing some follow-up, and that's the case. So this lady, for an example, and we'll break down that deal, because why is she frustrated? She's an investor. She bought this property for $250,000 cash. She then put $100-something thousand into the property and made it great looking. She put it on the market for $425 and didn't sell. They drop it down to $399, didn't sell. To the point it was on there for 6 months. She takes it off the market. She's all upset. So she reaches out to us because she saw our Facebook post. Imagine that, that we're buying houses. And so she says, I want to sell my property. I bought it as an investment. I completely remodeled it, and I don't owe anything in the house, and I need to sell it. And if I sell it to you at $400,000, I'm breaking even. So she probably went way over budget too.
Yeah.
Probably maybe even outpriced the neighborhood. But the house is gorgeous. Like, it is turnkey.
But it doesn't sound like she owed anybody money. And that was like my
No.
main thing. I was like, well, like, does she need that money right now? Because if she owes hard money or private money, and like she's got this like term length that she's got to like quickly turn over, because now that's just going through the roof, then it's really hard to help these people. But we talked about with Jared a few weeks ago, like there are possible ways, but she doesn't. And so could there be some potential there? Because what is she going to do? Possibly just rent it out. But as we all know, if you're just renting, that comes with its own bag of fun.
Oh, girl. Well, so that's what Lexi did a great job. She pivoted.
Yep.
So she said, would you be open to terms? No, I wouldn't be open to terms. Then maybe I'd be open to terms. And then if I were to, I want $400,000 for my house that didn't sell for $400,000 in the market. So we were guessing it's probably worth less than that. But if the rest of the terms look okay, we could pay $400,000. So we told her that, okay, if we were to pay $400,000, we typically buy with no money down. She says, no, if I were to do terms, I would need $100,000 down. So Lexi did a great job and said, well, what's going to happen if you don't sell the house? She says, well, I'll probably just rent it. So she says, well, if you were to just rent it, you probably are not going to get $100,000 from a renter. You're going to get first month's rent and a security deposit. And because we're in Florida, you could get last month's rent too. But it's only going to be a few $1,000s. It's not going to be very much. So then she says, well, if we were to buy it with seller financing, we'll buy it, we own it, and we'll still pay you, but you don't have to be responsible for the tenants and the collecting the rent and the phone calls. We're going to pay you, instead of paying Bank of America every month, we're going to pay Bank of Nancy or whatever her name was. And we're going to make you monthly payments until we get it cash out later on. And this is why we love our rent to own program. And I'm not going to like take jabs at anybody else. Do your thing. But if we want to get this lady cashed out down the road, and you're going to plan on refinancing it later on and taking on debt yourself, or signing through your LLC, which is still you're personally guaranteeing the debt, whether it's on your credit or not, because you're signing for it. If you're going to plan on refinancing, well, if rates go up or down, like that can make a big impact on what you're doing. However, with rent to own, rates are a little higher right now. And what do we have going on this week? Do we have one of our renters who's qualified for the mortgage?
I hope so. I think they were just figuring everything out, but it sounds like Friday is a go.
Friday is the closing
As long
day.
as you do the lead agreement thing.
Oh, I did. I did. So,
but yeah.
So that's kind of the point, is having that exit strategy. This is many of the reasons why we love rent to own, and we're probably going to come back and just do one all on rent to own. So if anybody wants to see a rent to own special, drop it down in the comments now, right? Rent to own, because I want to see it. If we get a lot of comments where I see rent to own and you want to learn more about how we do it, and how we do it the right way.
Right way.
And because we've been doing it for so long and we've done it to so many properties and helped out so many of our clients do that. And so where now they're finally making some money with the rentals. It changed the game for everything. Plus the no phone calls and toilets. So I can see some rent to own coming in right now. So if you want to see this class on doing it, you just got to let me know you want to see it, right? Okay. Now I start to see them come in.
We'll do it after hours.
Oh, you're talking about doing office hours?
Saturday or a nighttime. I know people are probably on their lunch break and listening, like hush hush.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Job. So
I like that.
Very cool. And I think that, it is something that's just misunderstood, or, you try to slap it together from a couple of posts here or there, or so-and-so told you, like, try this method. And I don't know, you got to be careful.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've seen so many people say, Joe, like, how do I do rent to own? Does the rent go towards the oh my gosh, like so many things could be like wrong if you don't do it correctly. That's why it's important. But two things happened in the last 2 weeks. We have somebody moving into one of our rent to own just last week, right? They're just starting the process of renting and on the path to home ownership, hopefully. I hope all goes well. However, this is the third time we've had somebody go into this property for rent to own. So you wish for the best. However, this week we have the other side of that. We, this Friday, are turning another renter, into a homeowner this Friday. So not only do we give somebody a place to live, but we're helping humans on a completely different level, which is the greatest thing you can do, is help somebody get into their future home now and rent it until they're able to kind of straighten out what's going on, and then finally qualifying for a mortgage. And then when they do, hooray. But you have like the second celebration. And that's what we found. They have the first celebration when they first move into the house, the second celebration, which they go to the attorney's office, sign some paperwork, and then go back to the house they've already been living in for a while. But still, cause for celebration.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to see the cycle, both sides, this is why we like it. And I mean, even in between, we really didn't get any phone calls.
Yeah. And, as far as rent to own too, it's just like, it's a great way to grow your business. And I know so many people only focus on, well, you're going to lose a door. And we kind of like poke fun at that because, like, again, you may lose a door, but now you're going to make a nice spread on the back end check of helping somebody own that home. And you can go buy more doors if you choose. So I don't quite understand that logic. But, again, it's just like, otherwise, if you're just stockpiling doors and you're not actually cash flowing because now you're replacing roofs or you're putting in new heating systems or AC, or you're doing all the things that really cut into the profit. I don't know.
I agree with you. So we got a great question that just came in. You want to read that one out loud?
Yeah, let's see here. Oh, rent to own of your favorite exit, not seller finance for 30 years. So basically, why do we choose rent to own and not seller finance?
Well, the big reason is if our renter stops paying, or the person we sold the house to stops paying, in most states, not all states, but in most states, if the deal is going backwards, right, and you have to now remove that person from the property versus an eviction or a foreclosure, in most states, eviction is much quicker of a process. Number two, we like to own the property so I can write off depreciation. We benefit from appreciation and all of those factors too. And because one of the last reasons why I think I like it so much is because you just heard a second ago, this was the third time somebody gave us back the property. Now we just put our third rent to own person in that property. So the last guy didn't end on bad terms. He was fantastic. He loved us. He called us and said, I feel so bad. I'm not able to buy the house. I found love on the other side of town and we're getting serious and I'm moving in with her. And I said, you get the house back. So rather than having to go through any type of attorney paperwork to get the house deeded back to us from him, lease is up. He moved and everything was great. So I think that is really part of the reason why. And I like to own the real estate. And if you are just the bank, there's nothing wrong with that, but you are the bank. And there's lots of banks who make a lot of money. However, I like to also own the property and still get that cash flow. Benefits me in a few different ways.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time and money on education, learning how to do it too. And I feel like we could literally just go on like all about that. But, as far as the different strategies, this really made the most financial and, like, to me, it just made the most sense overall. Yeah. And so when I saw, like, okay, like, it's just easy, set it, forget it. You truck along until it's time for them to purchase a property or not. you know, it's just really, we like to make things hard as humans, I feel like. And sometimes we get into too many projects, too many things, too many shiny objects, because I'll admit there was a course we bought, you know, 10 years ago on,
Airbnb.
Or not 10 years ago, maybe it was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But it was after we already started rent to own. And I'm like, oh, rent, or we could do Airbnb. And then I was like, no, thank you.
I heard it on a podcast and I'm like, wow, this sounds great. He was actually interviewing with Ron LeGrand way back.
And it's a great method. People are crushing it,
Yeah.
but it's literally its own business.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of systems that need to be set up to really be successful and to get the high ratings and the concierge and all the things. But yeah.
Well, it's a service business.
Yeah.
It's a service
I
business.
see more people complaining about the complaints they're getting, and I'm just like, I don't have time.
Well, some of the complaints they're getting too are pretty wild. Too. I mean,
well, there's not saying who's right, who's wrong, but
although we've stayed at some of y'all Airbnbs and some of y'all do a great job, some you need to do better.
Blackout Windows. If you were on a corner, main street, like busy intersection, don't put sheer curtains there.
Especially at night when the street lights turn on and
they don't go off.
The inside of the whole place is like being on the surface of the sun.
Yeah. So pros and cons. I didn't leave a bad review though. I knew we were the first people there, and you know. But either way, pick a method, stick with it, crush it really well, and don't try to be all things for everybody. You can have it all. You don't have to do it all.
Yeah. Well, and here's what I always say is focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people reach out to us and say, Joe, like, I want to get into your program with you and Jen. And then I'm like, okay, well, what else are you doing? Well, they're like, well, I'm learning how to do self-storage. I'm learning how to buy, you know, multifamily properties. I'm also looking at construction on sky rises. And I'm like, whoa, like you just need to pick one thing and do it well.
Yeah.
So for us, I think it's always been the key of, this is what we learned from a lot of our coaches, was how to buy real estate without banks, without credit, without using a ton of your cash, and then how to incorporate that rent to own strategy. So if you did have to come up with a little cash, you're going to get that back from when your renter moves in anyways. So we found this strategy of how to actually get paid to buy houses without using banks and credit, which is even way better. So now you can scale at a different speed.
Well, I think too, like, you know, you can level up. So we're like, because we were kind of silly at first. There were a couple wholesale deals we may have tossed in the garbage when we first got started because we were only buying on terms. There was only like a couple though, but once we realized
there was more than a couple, and there was some creative deals that we actually passed on too, which was like some really high-end houses. The two will never leave me, like
haunt you.
Oh, they're gonna haunt me for the rest of my life, because like this one lady had it in the great neighborhood back in New York. And it was like on the golf course, like a 4,000 square foot house. And she was like, please just take this house. Like, please take it. I don't even live there.
So what stopped you?
It was a big, expensive house. And I was scared, and I didn't really have any training, like real good guidance on how to analyze that deal. Come to find out, what a hamster I was. Like, totally missed the boat on that one. And that was like a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot house on the golf course, on like where you grew up.
Well, yeah, but I think too, you know, I think that had we gone through with it, we didn't have the network that, you know, we now have today. And, you know, making those payments, I think, is what stopped you, just because.
Oh, no, just me. My limiting belief that we could get into a house that big, limiting belief on so many things. If I had the Joe me now talking with the Joe back then, I would have given me a little upside the head.
Well, because my point I was going with is, if yes, you can get into deals with no money, little money, but you need to have some reserves.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure we could have. I mean, we did have money, but it would have. You know, maybe that was a fear of yours.
Oh, she would just like come take this big old fancy house, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to. That's really a big house, and it was like not even old. It was like a 10-year-old house. The other one was the same thing. It was a high-end house. We drove by that one.
I remember.
On Ridgemont Estates. And it was like some 4,000 square foot house, a gorgeous house, gorgeous neighborhood. And they didn't even live in that house anymore either. They moved to Florida. This was in 2017. They've already been going to Florida. And they're like, yeah, we have this house that's just sitting there empty, and we don't want to make the payment anymore. And we have some equity, but we don't need it. Would you want to buy it? I'm like, I could buy it with seller financing. And they're like, okay. And I just chickened out. What a hamster. So those are my two deals. But when you learn from a lot of times from great, you know, people around you, and that's why we pay to be around some of those people, but you also learn from some of your own mistakes. So if anything, what I would say is it was more expensive to not have a coach and pass on those deals than it would have been to pay a coach a couple grand to learn how to do this stuff the right way.
And we had a coach, but it was very 30 minutes once a week.
That was it.
That was no community. I feel like that was really a missing component that now we really cherish.
Yeah, so that's a big difference too. So when you know better, you do better, they say. So that was really why.
But today, if someone called and was like, take over my payments.
Look at Nunda Boulevard.
I know.
This was okay. Fool me once, right? Fool me even twice. But when that third opportunity came and we bought that gorgeous house, it was like a 2,800 square foot house with a finished basement and attic. So it was like almost 5,000 square feet total in the high-end neighborhood where the mayor lives in the area. And the guy running it, he's actually in our program now, but he had it as an Airbnb. And it was such a big house to overturn, clean it out every time somebody left. It was a lot. And then not only that, the neighbors from this neighborhood, because they're all snooty, they didn't want this Airbnb going there. So they're all giving him a hard time. So he's like, I just need to get rid of this like tomorrow. And we bought it $100 down, put our renter in. Our renter moved in, paid rent, and now they bought it last summer.
And that's the thing too. Like everyone's always saying like, well, how do you convince a seller?
You got to talk to a motivated seller. Okay. Stop wasting your time with time wasters or people who aren't motivated. There's lots of people who want to sell. They're just not motivated to sell. Right. So spend time with motivated sellers who actually have a real estate problem that you can solve. Because many times people want to sell their house, but what they want solved can be easily done by a realtor and probably should be a lot of times. But there's many of these situations where that's not the case. And that's totally okay for both sides of that. There's going to be some that go both ways. But on that side of it, you want to have multiple tools in your tool belt. So today, I'm looking at a junker with the roof caving in Oklahoma. And the guy's like, I just bought this thing for $3,700. If you guys buy it for $15,000, which I'm like, no shot. There's no way. Won't buy that for $15,000.
At first, I was like, oh, $15,000. I saw that come through. Like, that's cheap. Now that you explain the rest of it,
I mean, literally, it's like caving in the house. That thing should be just bulldozed.
Did he do anything to it?
No, he bought it and then doesn't live in town and doesn't have the money to rehab it now.
So it's worth almost $10,000 more.
It's worth zero
to him.
You should see this thing. I mean, maybe the wood is worth something, but it's all old and wrecked. I don't know. But either way, not a deal for us.
Yeah.
But, however, and then do you remember the house in Pennsylvania? And I don't know how we reached back out to this guy today.
Not the orange roof or whatever.
No, the one where it's literally falling into that river. Remember that?
Yeah.
The guy was like, I want like $200 for my house because if it falls into the river, the city's going to charge him for the cleanup of having to do that, which is worth way more than the whole house. And it's falling in. He says,
the one bad thing about the CRM is if you don't stay on top of it, it does follow up.
I was like, oh,
everybody
abandoned. We did not want that house that's falling into the river for $300. Yeah, because what is?
Well, and I want to talk about that too, because some people are getting super frustrated. Like they'll focus on like these deals. I can't find deals in this market because on the flip side, like the seller is motivated. They want to sell, but if they even go to closing, they're going to lose money. But then also, the payment is more than the rent. And it's like the hard, cold truth. And like, it's the hard facts that a lot of people like don't want to almost realize or come to terms with, but like talk about how you pass on some deals or a lot of deals right now in this market because they are not deals. Because I know like my shirt is currently saying that cash flow.
Everything around me.
Yeah.
However, there are some deals that you can't cash flow. And I'm going to tell you why. I ran into a deal last night when I had to get on a call with one of our clients. She has a seller who wants to sell her house in South Carolina. Young lady just bought it in September. Kind of a really tough story to hear, but she's a single young lady and the neighbor across the street is creeping her out. He comes cutting the grass. He comes like she's put cameras around to stop coming over. He keeps doing it. I guess he's had a history of doing this. So she's like, I want to sell it now. It's in South Carolina. She bought it for like $140. I was like $134 on it or $135. She doesn't really have equity. In her town, she's like, it takes 60 to 90 days to even sell a house in the market right now. And I want to sell now. So I can do terms. I will gladly do terms. Come to find out, her interest rate is like 7.62 or something like that.
It's higher than it is at the bank.
It depends on credit and a couple other factors. So her situation is her payment's higher than what it rents for. And so how do you help in that situation, right? Mm-hmm. And we see that a lot. And unfortunately, there's many of these situations where if it doesn't cash flow or at least break even on a long-term rental, but maybe my strategy was to keep it a long time, or maybe my strategy is I'm going to turn it into a midterm rental where I could squeak out a little bit more cash. Maybe that's a great extra strategy, and I think that could be fine. However, if regulations change or that part of the business changes, or you don't want to do that anymore, or for whatever reason, you have to now go to a long-term rental, you don't want to be able to lose $500 a month, $1,000 a month. Some of these are even way more that I'm finding right now. So on those, it's tough. But if it doesn't break even or minimum cash flow in a long-term rental, I don't want to buy that deal.
Yeah, and you feel bad because again, we get into this business because yes, we want to make money, but ultimately you're helping people, and it's like I just can't help in the situation. So
well, and that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of people right now who are trying to Burr, and I'm not trying to talk some smack, but I think Burr sucks. I've done it a bunch of times.
You're not trying to talk smack.
Well, it takes so long to be able to scale an
Coming
empire.
From someone who's Burred successfully quite a few times, but
for a very long time now. We did our first Burr, 16 years ago when we bought Conrad.
I didn't even know what you were doing back then.
I'm telling you. But what was happening was we found this strategy, right? I didn't know it was a thing in 2008 where you could remodel a house, but you got to pay cash for the house. You got to have the cash to also renovate it. You then got to put in a renter. Then you got to refinance it. And the whole part about Burr is you're supposed to take out whatever you had invested and then even extra money on top of that if you can. Right. And that was the point of Burr. And then after you do all of that and you refinance it, you should be able to add in the taxes and the insurance and then still cash flow. But what I've seen happening so many times now is either the appraisal didn't come in at the right number. They went way over budget like this young lady did. So she went and bought the house for $250,000. She's got all in it $400,000. She listed it at $425,000. She's like, I can't Burr out of the thing because the rate would be way too high and I wouldn't get all my money back out of it. And so she's in a little bit of a jam. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing that a lot of times right now because when you're basing your business on just doing that and relying on what the banks are going to give you, well, if the banks are low at 2.5%, everybody's high-fiving. Market's on fire. Everybody's doing great. But when the market's at 7-8% like it is right now what are you going to do? Are you going to continue to Burr it at 8% rate? If it cash flows, but sure, you're taking on a lot of ifs in that situation. But this is why I love creative finance because you could still get 2%, 3%, 4% rates right now. Mm-hmm. They're out there, and they did that study showing that 67% of people have an interest rate under 4% on their mortgage right now. So there's a lot of people out there, 3/4 of the country, or not 3/4, but 66% of the country have really good interest rates. Now, some of those need to sell. Mm-hmm. That's your opportunity.
I think it's I don't know if it's mainstream media or what, but we talk about fixer upper, fixer whatever. Flop, fix
or flop.
Yeah, whatever that show was. I watched a little bit, but I feel like that's still the go-to sexy thing. It's I want to buy a house and renovate it, and then I want to.
Yeah, until you do.
I want to say I did it, and I try to explain it to someone who that's all they know from a TV show, and what we talk about just seems really not cool.
Well, you should go do it. Go try it. Go see what it's like.
And I don't know if it's because we've been there and we've not physically, swung the hammer, because fortunately you've always subbed that part out. Because I think that's really hard for some people who do physically swing the hammer to get themselves removed out of there, because they do that really well and you can't scale a business that way. But, I don't know. I feel like we can be on the mountaintop telling everybody rent to own is the way to go. But for some reason, some people are just always going to.
Well, you got to pick your flavor. Right. Yeah. Some people like chocolate. Some people like vanilla. Some people like strawberry.
I hate strawberry.
I'm a vanilla guy, so I get it. But this is the whole point. So you got to find a strategy that works for you. I just look at my exposure and risk versus the reward.
That's where I'm going.
This is where I see the opportunity. So where can I really maximize my dollars I have to make it into a whole lot more? What's my best return on my time, my money? Because there's many times you can get into a fix and flip and make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. We've done it. But the challenge with that is also how much time are you taking into doing that? Where in many situations, we're able to wholesale that deal or just do the light fix and flips, although we are doing some right now. So
well, and two, like if you take us real quick snapshot front to back, let's use Nunda for kicks, from what we spent out of pocket to what we made cash flow to,
oh my gosh,
or for front and you know where I'm going with this. Like, so in 2 years, not even, I think it was.
We bought that deal with $100 down. We paid $5,100 in closing costs. We shared the HUD statement on here before. If y'all want to see it again,
on my Instagram,
it's on there. The HUD statement when we closed on it. Okay, from that property, we have out of pocket $5,200. We put in $300 worth of smoke alarms. House is already turnkey because it used to be an Airbnb, and the owner just took all the stuff out of it, so it was ready to go. And when our renter moved in and gave us $25,000 plus first month's rent, we didn't have any more money tied into the deal. Now, we did pay an insurance policy. We did pay 3 months of payments, or even 4 months before we found the right renter. So there was more than just $100 down into the deal. But the long story short, when we found our renter, we got paid a big check on that. Then we rented it out, and we were cash flowing a little over $1,000 a month. And then when they just bought it with our back end check, we made 6-figure return in total hours into that deal. I mean, it's not 15.
Yeah.
Not front and back, not 15 hours. So that's why I like the turnkey rent to own strategy the best, because when we do a fix and flip, I'm on the phone with the contractors. I got one message today. I'm going to do all the cabinets are going to be white. What color backsplash do you want?
Why are they asking you? I tell them to come to me.
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't answer yet. So good news, you still get to answer them on that. So, but that's the thing. So it's like all the things, send me pictures, the update. Oh, this is not right.
I need more money. Yeah. The back and forth. So
it's all the things. So this is why, yeah, we'll focus on some flicks and flips, but they're usually the very light, easy ones. If I'm going to do one, preferably there are creative flips. What's a creative flip, you asked, Jen? I knew you were going to say that. You're like, self, what does he mean by that?
I know what you mean, but tell everybody else listening.
What a creative flip is when I could buy a property with creative finance. So literally no money out of pocket besides just a few thousand in closing costs and putting an insurance policy on there. Now I own it. Now I could get the renovations done and pay for that out of pocket, or I could even partner up with a contractor if I really didn't have any money, and they go do all of the work. And then once we sell the property, we split the funds if you want to. Now, her and I, we pay for that out of pocket. But if I have to buy a house for $200,000 and I have to put 75 into it, and I've got out of pocket 275 cash plus closing costs and holding costs, so that's probably 285 or more, right? And then you want to sell it for 400,000, minus out your commissions and real estate and all that kind of stuff. You look at the return on your money, it's decent. But if you bought that house with just $5,000 in closing costs and put the same amount of renovations into the property and had some holding costs, and you had $85,000 out of pocket, your return on your cash could take you a lot further. So if we do them, they're usually lighter jobs. I'm not going to want to do some big renovations. I'll wholesale like we're doing right now.
No, because any even light job does not mean that.
And I love the comments. I had a comment. One guy's like, I do a lot of Burr, and none of my jobs have ever come over budget. Ever. I'm like, well, that's great. You did 2 of them. If you try
have we gone over budget?
Yeah. I mean, think of the house that caught on fire.
Oh,
right? And our insurance covers that. But when you start opening things up,
Pandora's box,
things start happening. So to say you never go on budget.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. And then I think about like the Connecticut. It was like one thing after another with that. Yeah. The basement stairs. But you like budget for the budget, going over budget, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You always have.
Well, feel like overflow.
Every time. So whatever my contractor says, I always add about another 15% on top of that. And I know, you know what? Because he said it was 20 grand. And then when I talked to him today for the one we're doing in New York, he's like, it's going to be 24,000. I was like, I knew it was going to be. Right? Yeah. So
we said keep it between 15 and 20. And I didn't even put the backslash in because what we've learned, this is a rent to own we're bringing up to speed the really attractive, beautiful new buyer, which cross your fingers, ladies and gentlemen, we might actually have one. We haven't even officially put it like out there yet. But I don't want to go put in backsplash because what if she wanted a different one, So that's the wonderful thing about rent to own, that we've learned not to go overboard with carpets and paint and just kind of keep everything very basic, because the whole purpose is they're going to come in and treat it like their own home, and they're going to want to make it theirs. And so a brand new kitchen, a brand new bathroom, brand new living room flooring, like you name it, we've seen it.
And then some.
And then some, yeah.
So always a good time when you find out your renter moved out after doing a rent to own for 5 years, gives you the house back. This is in upstate New York. We're down here in Florida. And my contractor says, hey, I went to the house. The key was on the front gate. The guy just emailed us like, hey, you got the house back. Even changed his phone number. So his phone is even either off or a different thing.
Very odd.
And then our contractor does a walkthrough, and our tenant was growing pot in the house and left a couple of his old pot plants up there. All like,
I guess
hanging.
It's legal up there now or something.
Yeah. Well, do we have to put that in there? Like, don't turn this house.
Please don't turn it into this.
But
farm.
People do stuff, right? People do stuff, the wackiest of things. But this is why we like rent to own. I really don't want to get the house back. I'd love for them to buy it, maybe 10 years later, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting.
We're like a comedy show. We're getting a lot of laughs today.
Hey, you know what? When you hear the truth of what this business really
and real
happens.
quick, back to the, I'm going to throw James's comment up here. Back to the house that had the fire. This is why we're huge proponents of having proper insurance on your rental, but then also making sure your renters have renter's insurance and not providing appliances.
Yeah, that was the key to that. Well, first, our renter had insurance, so great move. Second move, they said, yeah, I started the fire. I left bacon on the stove when we went to work. Didn't realize I left the stove on. So they were gone. So, of course, in the beginning, once that fire happened, our insurance company took care of everything. But then they did the investigation. They sent over an investigator, a fire investigator, and they take the stove and they check the manufacturer to see if there's any defects in the stove, and they could go after the manufacturer even. And our tenant, they even asked, whose stove is it? And because when we do rent to own, we do not furnish our properties with appliances. So our renters not only have to move in, but they have to bring their own refrigerator, their own stove, their microwave, unless it was like a built-in microwave or a built-in dishwasher. But a stove and a refrigerator, they're always bringing that, because if you own a lot of properties, you own a lot of stoves and refrigerators that, die on Thanksgiving, all the weirdest stuff. And I don't want to deal with that. But when they found out, they even asked, whose stove is it? I'm like, it was a renter's. They're like, are you sure? I'm like, oh, I'm positive. My renter said that she did it. So it was about 2 weeks before Christmas. And I remember the insurance adjuster called me and he was like, hey, good news. That claim doesn't go against you. And you even get your $1,000 deductible back. So we'll send you that in the mail. And we also had full replacement coverage.
Right.
And we had rent reimbursement.
Which was so helpful.
Yeah. So the insurance company was even paying the rent while the house was vacant. So all wonderful things. And the house got completely remodeled.
Yeah. So
not a bad deal there. Insurance done right is especially important. So some of the things, guys, I will say, if you're looking to get deals in this market, the most important thing is to get yourself in front of sellers. And I was told this by my coach, and I've said this before, but if your family member got kidnapped, you had 1 week to get them back. In order to get them back, you had to do a deal in 1 week. Would you be spending time on your website or your logo or, your shirts, making sure they're all embroidered with your company? Or no, you would be talking to sellers. So the whole point of it is talk to sellers and find out how you can make, their real estate problem go away, making it easy, making it quick. I could offer top dollar if you're open to terms, or if you need a cash offer because the house needs a lot of work, I could even do terms on that, but I could also do cash if needed. And I think that's really the kind of way to go at it. And if you could get in front of 10, 20, 30 people every single week and see if you could help them out, guys, that's going to be what's going to move the needle. So many people talk about use this strategy. No, get in front of people.
Talk to people. Ask them questions. And if you need our script, I hate even using that word, but they're just the 10 questions that you just need answers to in order to even see if you can help make something work out for the person. But just head over to our website real quick. We can drop that link here.
Only under one condition. Don't change the script.
Don't change the script, yeah.
Because everybody always they get it. Like, okay, I know it works, but I'm going to change it. Because I've never done a deal yet, or I've done one deal. Now I want to do more. But let me change the script. It's really, really working for so many different people.
I mean, you can change it, but
You're not
I know what we wrote works because that's how we've done it. And 2 years ago, we had a team member where I went through and team members, and I kind of did an audit because they were changing the script. And what they were doing was just using the words, but clumping the questions together or skipping over some that they didn't feel like asking. And I was like, just for, a little bit of time here, why don't we just stick to the script? So copy and paste questions 1 through 10, one at a time, get your answer. And wouldn't you know, that team member of ours locked up, I think it was 3 deals in 1 week.
She all of a sudden
10 were under contract for that month. So, it's just those small details, because what happens is if you make somebody confused, they're not going to be able to answer you. So if you ask like 3 questions at once, you're going to get maybe 1 out of the 3 questions answered. So really important. Ask 1 question, get the response. Don't be a robot about it, like throw in an emoji. And if they're writing paragraphs, like hop on the phone. Like that's a motivated seller. If they're giving you a life story of why they need to sell, then quickly ask your questions, but more importantly, hop on the phone and see how you can help.
Get that phone number, get on the phone and talk to them and see if you can help them. Now, the one key though, I will say, is make sure you're talking with motivated sellers. So many people say, well, this doesn't work. Well, if you had to talk to 100 unmotivated sellers in a row, you're going to feel like you're banging your head against the wall. But if you talk to 100 motivated sellers, you're going to realize the sky's the limit. You could help people. You could actually do deals. You can have closings and make money too. And that's the whole point of doing this, guys. It's to help people and make money. And if you like doing those 2 things and it aligns with what you're doing, this is why I love this business. And the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
So I know when we first got started, when we very first got started, COVID happened. And I'm sitting there at home like, man, what are we going to do to generate leads? How am I going to get people in front of me? How am I going to find these people? And that's when we started working on that whole Facebook strategy.
Yeah. I mean, we even had an ad where like I literally look like a floating head, like in the middle of like a random street, because that was just one of the things like our mentors had said would work. It did. It certainly drummed up some interesting comments. And I think we might have actually gotten a deal out of that ad looking back on it. But you don't know until you try. And, it may look silly from the outside, or you may feel a little funny doing it because you've never, put yourself out there in that way. But if you can just get over that fear and know that the right person is on the other side waiting for you to take those chances to really help them out. So,
yeah, if you could see the story after story after story in our CRM of some of these situations people are going through.
Well, I want to talk about the one they're already living in Florida.
Which one is that?
The one, beautiful.
All right, deal time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a property in East Chatham, New York. This property is turnkey. It's a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood. These people just bought it maybe a year ago. Wasn't terribly long ago.
I have to double check.
They just bought it. I think it's got a 5% rate on it, 5 point something rate. They decide after buying this house, they don't want to live in New York anymore. And let me tell you, that's one of our secret weapons. Is people, the deals that we were doing in New York is because they all wanted to leave and move somewhere else. So that was some of our bread and butter. Here it is still working to this day.
Yep.
So they've already moved to Florida.
They were already packed and ready to go before they even
signed the paperwork.
Yeah.
So now they've got a house and they're open to doing creative finance deal. So here's how that numbers work. They bought it for $250. I think they want $260 for it now. They owe pretty close to that. Their payment all in, taxes and insurance and everything included, is about $2,000 a month. And I think when Courtney looked it up, at an Airbnb only performing at 50% of the time, it was going to pull in like $3,500 because it's like a touristy, like nice area. It's on the New York, but like Massachusetts border. And all of the other Airbnbs there are like these really, really big houses. Mm-hmm. This is that cute little like 2-bedroom house on like 2-3 acres.
Yeah, the outside's so pretty. Like there's a little campfire pit.
So it's a total rocking place for Airbnb. Can you do a long-term rental there too? Sure you can. It's not in the middle of a big city. It's more of a touristy area, but there's still people living there. There's still properties around there. So ideally that would work really well for somebody who wants to do an Airbnb. Mm-hmm. So the seller wants $10,000 down and they will let you take over their existing mortgage at a 4 or 5.5 rate or whatever it is, taking over their payment, no bank qualification. So you need $10,000 down and closing costs. We're going to get a finder's fee for this. What's called an assignment fee. So you're going to give Joe and Jen a finder's fee for that on top of that. But for, not a ton of money, guys, you're into a deal that's turnkey no banks involved, no credit involved, and this could be the perfect Airbnb property.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the stats right there?
Yeah, you were pretty close. 5.8.
5.8.
PITI is 2,044.59.
And I think the long-term rent for that property, you're probably talking in low 2000s. So you could probably cash flow, I would imagine, 200, 300, 400, 500 a month on that door. But that sucker would really do best as a either a midterm or a short-term rental.
Yeah.
Just because of the location of it.
I was looking for her Mash Visor stat. I know she posted it somewhere.
Yeah, it was a great deal.
Yep.
And a lot of people, they're getting well over 50% occupancy on their Airbnbs. And if you don't know, there's a whole lot of people who teach that stuff, not us. That's a deal. So if anybody's interested in that deal, send us a message and we could get you some information on there and get you connected.
Connect you.
So really, I think wrapping this all up, guys, there's a lot of times where people like Joe, John, like, I have a lead, I have a deal. This might be something that I could do. If you need help, the two things I would say is you hear how we could post and get sellers on Facebook for free. Number two, we give away our script for free, guys. We're all about getting you going and getting you started in this business without having to come up with thousands in marketing and like, what do I ask? Like, it's all out there. We just give you all of that value, okay? Because it helps us too. I can't tell you how many times people are like, hey, Joe, I put out that blue post. I have a lead. Like, well, I think we could either sell you this deal because this looks like a good one, right? Or and it's happening. And I see other people getting leads from it because there's like 1.8 million Facebook groups on Facebook.
Yeah.
So there's none that we can't get. I mean, there's tons of them out there, and every kind of Facebook group works. There's not one that doesn't work. So what kind of group, Jen?
Any group, basically, but you really want to focus on community groups, so local towny groups, I like to call them. Not so much an investor group, because I mean, unless you're wanting to talk to short-term rental people, because there are people, believe it or not, they get into the Airbnb business and realize it's not for them, or stuff. Life happens, and so you could find a deal there. We've had clients certainly be able to run the numbers, and it works out great for a long-term rental.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, mom groups, buy and sell groups, yard sale.
That's the key. Join these Facebook groups, download our script, talk to some sellers. Then I have some people who say, Joe, Jen, like, I need some help. I really want to learn how to do this as a business. Like, I want to really dive into how to buy real estate without banks, without using my credit. Guys, call me or shoot me a text message and let's hop on a call and we can see how we can help. My phone number is 585-207-2240. If you could drop that down in the comments too, but it is 585-207-2240. You can shoot me a text or call me. If I'm busy, I will call you back. Just leave me a message. But I have a lot of folks who we're getting deals, okay? And I love to partner up and find a way that we could all make money together. Maybe you just want to learn how to do this for yourself. We could help you with that too. So guys, it's all about taking action. Mm-hmm. Now is the time in the market, right? When markets are dropping, I still think it's a good time to buy if you know how to buy them correctly. And I, just like anybody else, want to accumulate cash flowing assets.
Cash flowing assets.
I know many people say, Joe, what's more important? I go after appreciation. I don't worry about cash flow. Well, if you bought in 2005, 2004, 2006, 2007, and you're banking on buying then and then waiting for to continue to go higher. Well, if you don't know what happened in 08, 09, 2010, it went down. And to only bank on appreciation, that's a 10-year swing, 15-year swing before it got back to that same price what you bought it for back then. So there is some challenges with that. And if you're not making money, that's a long time to own real estate and to not make money. So for me, sure, I want appreciation. But if it doesn't cash flow, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. So that's what's key for us. And if the market goes up or if the market goes down, if I could cash flow $500, $600, $700 per door, I'm on the long run, guys. This isn't a quick in and out for me. And that's what I love about real estate. And it does turn around over time. So continue to just accumulate these cash flowing assets. And over time, you'll be pleasantly surprised what happens. I am so glad that we got started when we did. Mm-hmm. And looking at what we bought those properties for back then. In 08, what was happening? The market was going down. 2009 and 10, continually going down. And we were still finding these deals. And now what those suckers are worth then. So
yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And, you know, when I finally truly got on board, I think it was 2015, 16, 17.
you were always there.
Yeah, but like it was your cute little fun hobby there until I realized I needed to help you organize some things.
My man was slanging houses and I needed some help, girl. I was working. We had new babies at home.
Yeah. But it wasn't my thing. And I totally admit that. And over time, you know, with just sharing the vision and you really, you know, telling me and showing me and being patient throughout the way, like that was really what got us here. And, you know, allowing me to take my time to come into it, I think was really important. And then finding my own voice along the journey, from being a teacher to helping people become homeowners. Like it's kind of a crazy switch there, but really isn't, because now it's kind of full circle and I get to teach others too. So cool.
And you didn't like, and this was the key. I didn't force it on her. You couldn't, but you just had to, I had to continue just to grow it. And my wife, you know, we both have skin in the game together. And that's the whole key to it. So
it is my fault. When I first met you, I was like, hope I don't insert my foot in my mouth, but I really like a go-getter.
Gotcha.
I haven't been bored since I met you.
And she's never going to be bored either.
No.
But that's the fun thing
Take
about
the
it.
risk, but calculated, and just surround yourself with the right people. And, you know, it is scary when you jump in, but totally worth it.
And now I get to work with her every day. So, I mean, talking about we could have a great old time, get some work done. Our kids, we homeschool. So
yeah, this
is a dream come true. And I'm so happy we took that chance and bet on us and all that hard work we continue to put in. It's nice to see that you start to get that payoff.
Yes.
So, especially on days like today when it's hot and beautiful out in Florida. So, guys, we're going to go have some outside time.
I don't know. It's really hot out.
I know, but we have a pool too. So you never know.
Okay.
But you guys have a wonderful Tuesday. Another thing too, did we talk about the next step of our podcast?
No, we haven't talked about that.
I think we should say stay tuned, but we got so much more coming, gang. You are going to lose your mind. This
there
is going
will
to be incredible.
More things coming down the pipeline. So yeah, thank you. We'll see you again next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern live. If you're with us, say hello. And if you have questions, if you're listening to the replay, drop them below. We will get back to you. And thanks for being here, guys.
And we're on all the podcast channels, Spotify, Apple, all of those too. So make sure you go check them out in there and give us some love. Love to see you. Same thing with the YouTube channel, Creative Finance Playbook. You guys have a great Tuesday. See you guys.
Bye.